Hello, everybody. Let me turn the volume up. How's everybody doing? Let me turn this music off. I do hope that we are live tonight. Please put something in the chat so we know for sure that we're live. We're live on all platforms. Super, super excited to be with you all this evening. Let me make sure my people are on. We're going to get started in a little bit, in just a moment. We're super excited to be with you tonight. Waiting on some folks to tell me that they're on. Anybody want to put something in the chat? I think that we may have lost the IG live, but that's okay. As long as Facebook is on, and let's check YouTube. Gonna get started in about another 2 minutes. Okay, so PG, can you, I don't know if you can hear me, but can you see me on Facebook? All right, awesome. So I got the word. We are live, guys. We are live. I'm gonna stop this music. We're gonna get started in about 2 minutes. I just want to make sure we're up and running on Facebook. I'm sorry, on YouTube. I want to welcome you all to the Visions of Hope Transformational Coaching Platform, Visions TV, and Visions TV podcast. I'm super excited for tonight. I want to apologize because last week we weren't able to be on. Okay, cool. So I just got the word that we are both on YouTube and on Facebook. So I'm super excited to know that. And so we're going to get ready to get started in 1 more minute. Feel free to put your information in the chat. I'm going to I'll be right back. All right, guys, I am back again. Welcome to the Visions of Hope Transformational Coaching Platform. Again, YouTube TV. I'm sorry, Visions TV and Visions of Hope TV podcast. We welcome you tonight. We're getting ready to get started. We have some great stuff in store for you. And so for us, because this is for all of us, and we're super excited to be able to share with you. So without further ado, my name is Yolanda Kelly, known to many of you as Nayla Shay creatively. And it's my pleasure to be your resident transformational life and wellness coach. And I'm super, super excited. Um, Visions of Hope is definitely, um, oh, thank you so much. Someone said they like my video text. um, Visions of Hope used to be called Visions of Hope Life and Wellness Coaching, and we rebranded it. It is currently now Visions of Hope Transformational Coaching. And we rebranded it in many ways. Our website is under construction. I'm seeing all the people come in. I'm so excited because last week, oh my goodness, I was so disappointed. I was disappointed. But you know what? Life happens. We worked out the kinks and we were able to get what we needed to get going. And so, again, excuse me, welcome to the interfaith and emotional, the intersection between faith and emotional health. That is what we're here for tonight. You see it scrolling on the bottom of the screen. I want you guys to definitely comment. We can definitely share some of your comments on the screen. And just, let your hair down. It's time to let your hair down. So let me get to my note and I would love to get ready to tell you about our guest for this evening. But before I do that, I do want to again um, just acquaint you with why we're here. Again, I'm your coach, the Transformational Life and Wellness Coach, Yolanda Kelly. Please share this because we are trying to get this information out to as many people as we possibly can. We are living this thing out as coaches. We are not therapists. We are coaches. However, we want to make sure that you have the information that we have as coaches because we are coaches in the mental health arena. Okay. And so, again, this session and next week's session is the intersection between faith and mental health. And our guest tonight is Pastor Joseph Graham Jr. I'll get into telling you who he is or how I've come to know him a little bit later. But again, we are professionals living life through living this life out, navigating our own lives as it relates to, excuse me, emotional and mental health and emotional and mental health awareness and faith. That's the key component because we're both believers in the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm a minister and he is also a pastor. And so we just wanted to kind of bridge the gap between the two and reframe our thinking around faith as it relates to emotional and mental health. One of the biggest things, before I speak about the difference between faith and emotional health, one of the biggest things that I think we took away as a body of believers in many cases is not really processing mental health or what that means. If any of you saw my Instagram pages last month during Mental Health Awareness Month, or what I've now called Emotional and Mental Health Awareness Month, I began to talk about the distinction between the two. If you've not gone to my IG page or my Facebook page, there is a link there, or actually a post there for you to go there and sign the petition to get Mental Health Awareness Month changed to Emotional and Mental Health Awareness. We want to get that changed, so please go to those pages. I'll probably repost it a little bit later or maybe tomorrow for you to go there and click on that link and sign that petition so we can get it changed, okay? Because we need everyone's support to do that. But one of the things that is important to us, I want to read to you 1 Thessalonians 4:13. That scripture is very pivotal to what we're going to be talking about tonight. That was excuse me, First Thessalonians 4:13 through 18. And I'm just going to read that for you. And then we're going to get into talking about um, the difference between mental health and emotional health very briefly so I can bring our guest on so he can take it away and we'll kind of interact a little bit. But that was First Thessalonians 4:13 through 18. And let me just read that to you. It reads as follows. And now, dear brothers and sisters, we want you to know what will happen to the believers who have died. So you will not grieve like people who have no hope. Okay. For since we believe that Jesus died and was raised to life again, we also believe that when Jesus returns, God will bring back with him the believers who have died. We tell you this directly from the Lord. We who are still living when the Lord returns will not meet him ahead of those who have died. Okay. And the key component of that scripture, I'm going to keep going. For the Lord himself will come down from heaven. My pastor, Pastor Elaine Merritt, loves this. I sing this song often. We shall behold him. For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a commanding shout, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet called of God. First, the believers who have died will rise from their graves. Then, together with them, we who are still alive and remain on the earth will be caught up in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. Then we will be with the Lord forever. So encourage each other with these things. Thank you for allowing me to read that in its entirety. And the reason why we brought that up is because the revelation that I received about that scripture is we take the part of the scripture and we often say, we don't sorrow as those who have no hope. And that is true. That is a true statement. We do not sorrow as those that don't have hope. And a lot of times, maybe not all people, but a lot of times people take that to mean that we don't like jump into the casket and fall out and have a Baptist fit. No disrespect to the Baptist folk, but fall out and in the pew and just act unseemly, if you will. But the revelation that I got is that also means that we are to heal properly. So we may not be falling out in the casket or falling out in the pew, but how are we coping? How are we grieving? Are we grieving? Which leads me to my next well, I'm gonna actually, before PG comes on, I'm gonna, or after he gets on, I'm gonna post my book, Good Grief. I wrote a book last year called Good Grief, and it really spoke to this in volumes. I'm gonna read a quote from the book. And it says, we must realize that if we don't allow ourselves to heal from emotional trauma or stress or emotional injury, which is what I call it, like death, or if those around us don't allow space for it, a healthy healing process in the case of good grief, because if we don't, we will learn how to function in dysfunction with the pain and become desensitized to it. I'm going to read that again. We must realize that if we don't allow ourselves to heal from emotional trauma or stress or emotional injury, like death, or if those around us don't make space for it, then we will not heal from the trauma properly. We have to allow a healthy healing process, in this case, good grief, because if we don't, we will learn how to function in dysfunction with the pain and become desensitized to it. So I just wanted to read that. Maybe between this week and next week, I'll read some more quotes from the book, and I am going to put the book up. But I want to get our guest up, Pastor Joseph Graham. Again, we have had conversations about this, and we started talking about this type of collaboration last year when I put the book out. And when I put the book out, Little did I know that that year would be filled with quite a bit of grief. In fact, the week that I put the book out, you may recall if you saw my post, um, the Tuesday before that was Valentine's Day, and one of my non-bio children, one of my daughter's best friends, and one of my non-bio daughter's fiance passed away in a tragic car crash. So, the reason I wrote the book Good Grief, it was conceived out of the passing away of my late husband and my transitioning through that process and allowing myself to really, really feel, getting into check with my feelings as well as my mental health, and what that looked like. I realized that we can heal and we are healing. And so that's what we want to get into tonight. I'm going to bring to the stage none other than our guest, Pastor Joseph Graham Jr. I call him PG. He is a dear friend of mine. He's a brother, and I love him dearly. Again, well, let's start with how we met. Well, Pastor Graham, why don't you, while I'm pulling up your some information here, you tell the people how we met.
Good evening. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. How we met was back in New Jersey. I had wrote a play called "Who's Gonna Save Me?" It's time to tell your secrets, and it was focused on four couples that were dealing with secrets that was plaguing them and was causing problems. And one of my favorite phrases is, "You can't conquer what you don't confront." And so the play really shows that even when something seems completely tragic or shameful, that you can truly find breakthrough and deliverance when you decide to confront those things. And Nayla Shea was one of the phenomenal actresses that was in the play, as well as a phenomenal singer. And we have just remained connected since then.
Indeed, we did remain or have remained connected over the years. Gosh, I don't even remember what year that was.
No, it was a long time ago.
But the onset of me meeting PG, I just want to take our time through this. I'm not trying to rush through this. We have this week and next week. But a lot of times when you're doing introduction, it does require some time, right, to set up what you're going to be talking about. And it is important for me to share with the people that this man of God, people throw that word around a lot, man of God, woman of God, and what have you. I don't usually use that term, but I can honestly say he's a man of God. And when I met him on site, we were in a studio session doing the music for the play. If anyone has picked up my first book, Confessions from a Broken Place, Her Story, His Glory, yes, both books are available on Amazon. You can go there right now. Confessions from a Broken Place, Her Story, His Glory is under Nayla Shea, and Good Grief is under my full name, Yolanda Nayla Shea Kelly. But when I met him, we were working on the play already, and one day we were in the studio, and I don't know what was happening, but we were getting ready to leave the session, and he kind of like blocked me in the doorway, so I couldn't get out the studio. And what's he doing? Like, I don't know him like that at that point to be like, why you in my space or whatever. And he said, "Woman of God," and y'all hear how he talks when he gets going. He said, up until now, you have had the faith. And the reason I brought up Confessions from a Broken Place is because even though it's a fictional story or fictional story based on the story of my life, I have put this account in the book. So he says, "Woman of God, I don't know, all of what you've been through, but you've had enough faith for God has given you enough faith to push down what it is you felt or what you've been going through. You've had enough faith to suppress it. That was the actual words he used. You've had enough faith to suppress it, but God is going to give you the strength to now deal with it. And he further said, it's going to be like a regurgitation. It's going to be uncomfortable, but God is going to help you to get through it. And I bring that up because honestly, he did not lie. Test the prophet, right? He did not lie up until that point. You think, and I'll speak for myself, I thought that I had dealt with the things that I had to contend with. I had gone through a divorce, and that was not great. One day I'll tell that story. We don't have time for that, but it was not a easy experience. And it was hurtful. I walked away with low self-esteem, and just trying to pick up the pieces of my life, to be very honest. And those who know me know I'm very transparent. Um, so just trying to pick up the pieces of my life, and going into this space where I just wanted to use my gifting of singing and acting. And I meet this man who just speaks into my life. And so obviously our paths were meant to cross, because after that, it was like a regurgitation and it was uncomfortable, but I survived it. And so I'm so grateful to Pastor Joseph Graham. And PG, bear with me. I know there was something that you sent me, but I'm just gonna let you get on the platform and talk while I, like I said, pull up some of this information. And you take it away. Wait, bear with me 1 second, because I need to be able to share um some things. Let me pull them up. PG has his own story, to tell. And God is truly amazing. Again, where God has brought us from, and what he has allowed for us to experience. I'm doing it on the wrong laptop. That's why I can't find what I'm looking for. All right, it should be over here. I'm like, where are my pictures? All right. So, bear with me as I look down away from the camera. PG is going to share his own story. He's going to tell his own biography, and you just wait until you see the transformation that he himself had, and the behind the story of that. Okay. So bear with me 1 second. I'm going full screen. I'm trying to work two devices at a time, guys. So bear with me. All right. So PG, just start telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm the pastor of Road to Damascus Christian Church, a faith and wellness ministry based out of Charlotte. It originally started as Road to Damascus Campus Outreach on the UNC Charlotte campus, and then it grew into a church. I'm also, to bring things full circle, I'm now a professor at UNC Charlotte, and I teach in sociology, health and medicine, religious studies, as well as women and gender studies. One of the courses that I teach is called Masculinity, Faith, and Mental Health, which is connected to my own journey. I'm also the Faith and Wellness Program Coordinator for an organization in Charlotte, or based out of Charlotte, called Living Waters Inc. And just like my sister Yolanda, I am a coach. I'm what you call a faith, mental health, wellness coach. And so I will be breaking that down tonight. The reason why tonight is so important to me is when we talk about the intersection of faith and emotional and mental health. And when we think about the intersection of anything, it is the crossing paths of ideas. It is the crossing paths of things that may have been commonly understood or believed to be separate, And you don't realize until you arrive at that intersection that these things have a relationship. And for all too long, people in religious spaces have not always effectively dealt with the social and emotional challenges that we have. It is a loaded past, because some of the reasons why we've developed some of these bad practices wasn't because we intended to be to deflect. It wasn't because we intended to sidestep real deliverance. Some of it is because we were in survival mode. We were in fight or flight mode. And the reality is that when we get to a place of maturity, we have to deal with things. Of course, when certain things happen, you have to do what's necessary to survive. But in order for you to be delivered, a thing has to be confronted. And since we're talking about the word of God, it was one thing for the people of Israel to come out of Egypt. It was another thing for Egypt to come up out of them. And so a lot of us have gone through trauma, and we've been removed physically from circumstances and situations, but the residue or the seeds that were planted in us are not delivered from out of us. And so it is important for us not to use religion to hide from our trauma. And so as Yolanda is getting the pictures together, I'm going to just share why this means so much to me. And let me just say this. Tonight is not about just another podcast or just a few talking heads giving their opinion on matters. But I sincerely hope that as I share my journey and the things that I walk through, that inspires others, that folks that may have been ducking and dodging certain things that they need to deal with, that they haven't dealt with, that they will step into a place of bravery, because they can see in my own testimony that there's no place, there's no valley too low, there's no depth of darkness that's so far gone that you can't find the light. And so for me, a part of my story, instead of it beginning before I was a pastor, this part of the story begins with me as a pastor. It begins with me um, getting awards for helping out students on the college campus. It begins with me being an ordained man of God. Um, it begins with me. You have to go back to the one with glasses. It begins with me becoming an ordained pastor. It begins with me starting campus outreach. And I started with something called the Power Hour. Power Hour was a Bible study that was on the campus. And the motto of it was academic excellence and spiritual leadership. And so the focus of it was, here I am on the campus, and these students, of course, are coming to Bible study, but it needs to be a source of inspiration so they can be successful as a student here. And as time went on, mentoring these students, all kinds of trouble, all kinds of challenges, all kinds of problems. Students were coming and confessing lots of things to me, and a great deal of trust had to be established from them to myself as a mentor and mentee. And I had to be responsible enough to partner with the school, because they had counseling services. And so there were many times there were students who were victims of sexual violence. There were students who came with baggage from where they grew up at. Some came with baggage, and some encountered baggage on the campus that led to support that they needed from me, and support that it required Road to Damascus to partner with the school. We won awards for helping students for preventing suicide on the campus. And so there was a lot of things going on. But what's significant, though, is that even though we had won awards for doing all this kind of great work, I myself, as a man, as a Black man, and as a man of faith, I had never gone into anybody's mental health counseling office. I had never even sought after mental health counseling, because after all, I am the anointed man of God. And if I need something, I go to the Lord. I don't have to go to no mental health counselor, even though I had the wisdom to help others to get that support. would not get it for myself for all kinds of reasons. And so therein lies the seed. When there is, the Bible says there's safety in a multitude of counsel. And the deeper revelation about that is that in life, you've got counselors who are experts in various different fields. And so just like when you got problem with your teeth, you go to a dentist. You got problems with your eyes, you go to an eye doctor. You got something going on in your body, you go to a physician. In other words, you go to someone who is skilled and in tune or knowledgeable about the area of need that you have. And so for me, but I didn't do it. And so for me, when tragedy struck, tragedy struck in terms of, for those who know me, and of course I'm meeting new people here for the first time tonight, I was very close to my mother and father, both God-fearing, went to church all our lives. I get a call from my family that my mother has had an issue and had to be rushed to the hospital, to discover that she has 3 months to live because she has pancreatic cancer. If you know anything about pancreatic cancer, because it's not an area that's often monitored, by the time it is discovered, you're usually in stage 4. And so my mom, with being a home health aide, she used to take me to work with her, and I used to watch her take care of people. And when I was in New Jersey, because I'm living in North Carolina, but I would go up and stay with her, I would have to do the very things I saw her do as a home health aide. At times, I would do those same things with her. It was a hard time for me and my family. And the death of my mom remains the cornerstone of how I arrived at the intersection of where we are tonight. The death of my mother brought me to the intersection of faith and mental health and emotional health. And it tore me down. I mean, it would take all night to tell you just the way I was at the funeral. It disturbed people, because all my life I'm usually represented to being a strong-minded, articulate speaker person that God is, that's ready for any situation. But that circumstance of them putting my mother in the ground, it broke me down in ways that words fail to express and properly explain. And what began to happen, and so this picture right here, and the reason I'm taking you on this journey, this right here is the picture I had. Of course, you can see I had some hair, had a fade. But this is when I became ordained as Pastor Joseph Graham, also known as PG. You can show the next picture.
I apologize. They may not go in order.
It's not in order. Okay. And so anyway, that picture shows me.
There it goes.
Okay, so that picture shows me. So you saw me. Watch this. You can hold it right here. So you saw me as an ordained pastor. And the reason I wanted to show, because sometimes when I first started doing this, I would do the before and after, but I want to do the before and then the after. So that first picture with the glasses, just so you can see what my condition was at that time, prior to the tragedy, prior to the circumstances happening in my life. This picture right here is when I'm graduating with my degrees. And this is after I have been dealing with the death of my mother, a marriage that wasn't working out. And oftentimes we as leaders, we run from our trauma. We use religion to run from our trauma. And I'm trying to walk you through. Here it is. I'm preaching every week, Bible study every week, oftentimes called out to preach and perform in different places. Oftentimes, even at this time, I was doing gospel hip hop quite a bit. I had opened up for Kirk Franklin, Mary Mary, Donnie McClurkin, Ty Tribbett, John P. Key, Hezekiah Walker, you name it. But on the inside, I was dying, having altar calls, people being led to Christ, magnificent things happening. Here it is. I am running a Christian ministry on a secular campus, and they know me. They know the ministry by name. We help students get internships, scholarships. We help with the retention of African Americans at the institution. We were recognized. But I myself was going through tragedy on my own. This person right here in this picture, this person has high blood pressure. This person has high cholesterol. This person is flirting with diabetes. This person is dealing with kidney failure. This person right here is dealing with hypertension, heart disease. I am breaking down in plain sight, anointed and all of that, but slowly dying, not just figuratively, but literally. And let me tell you, there were three significant conversations that led to my transformation. One was my graduate director, who I love and respect to this day. At that time, most of my time in school, I was on the chancellor's list. There was a time when I was grading all the research method student projects for the entire sociology department. But they could notice that my work was not on the level of excellence it had been. He calls me to the office and he's like, listen, I don't know what's going on, Joe. You got to talk to me. And I begin to tell him, express about the death of my mother. And so just so y'all can catch this, my mom gets diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, given 3 months to live in October of 2010. She passes away on February 4th of 2011. And then my father gets sick a year later and he dies in June of 2012. And then I become separated and divorced shortly after that. And if you know anything about divorce, that's like a death in and of itself. So while all of these things are happening, not only is it challenging my mental health, but my physical health is diminishing it simultaneously. And so my graduate director said, he said, PG, he said, we have free counseling here. You need to go and talk to someone. And that's what led me to go to counseling for the very first time. Because I was a student, the school gave you 6 sessions for free. Another one was was actually the sister of a friend who told me, listen, says, I can tell that you're not well in your body and you need to go and talk to someone. And then the third one was my doctor. My doctor said, because I'm the father of 4. And my doctor said, and my youngest are girls. And my doctor said, if you want to walk your daughters down the aisle, you got to do something, Mr. Grant. And so I started going to get testing done. I started walking 30 minutes a day. But it began with me going to mental health counseling. And it was one of the most life-changing decisions I ever made. And so a lot of what I went through in the transformation, and if you can go to the next picture, if you can pull it up, I don't know what order it's in. This is also me. This is where my JT is standing up and I'm holding my jailer. I'm letting you know this man right here that you're looking at, this that I told you with diabetes, flirting with diabetes, high blood pressure, hypertension, and all that. I'm wearing a 4X and that got snug sometimes. And let me tell you something. This is why I tell people I don't talk down or talk at folks. I'm telling you what I did and what I lived. Breyer's ice cream that I had the nerve to discover, what is Talente? I'm trying to tell you, food became my therapy. And this is real, y'all, because I'm dealing with grief. I'm dealing with sadness. I'm dealing with pain I can't articulate. And because I'm a leader, who am I supposed to go to? As much as I would preach about pride, I let pride get a hold of me. Because it said pride comes before a fall. And some pride doesn't always mean you think you stuck up. Pride is for those of us who don't want to burden anybody else. Because that was my thing. I don't want to burden people. Folks come to me for help. What do I look like pouring my burdens on them? And so while I held my burdens to myself, I was dying on the inside. And so when I began to go to counseling, it gave me a whole nother revelation of who God is in my life and gave me a brand new understanding of what it means to have relationship with God and not just religion. And the things that I believe she put it up there, I captured my transformative journey. in a book that I wrote that you can find on Amazon called Light Up, a guide for how to balance faith and mental health. And the book, I'm transparent because I had to go through, I discovered I had 30 mental health challenges: depression, anxiety, lack of motivation, unhealthy attachments. What's beautiful about the book is a very good friend of mine who is a licensed counselor, Dr. Joanne Frederick. She operates in the Maryland and the DC area. And she not only wrote the foreword for my book, but she provides the clinical definition of all 30 mental health challenges that I confronted and puts them inside of the book. So when you're reading the book, see, I grew up on Daily Bread, right? The little book where you get a scripture and a story. So the book flows like that, but it's also a journal. So you get to see what the revelations that I got. And then there's a call to action telling you what you need to do for yourself. And so this right here is a picture of what the book looks like. And so it is important. It was important for me to be able to chronicle my journey and to put it in something in a fashion that somebody else could be delivered and set free, just like myself. And so this book captures that. And so little by little, what I found out is that when I began to take my mental health seriously, and I didn't separate my mental health awareness from my walk with God, it illuminated my understanding of just how much God cares about me and just how much power God has placed on the inside of us to confront those things that come to plague us. And so the website that she had put up there is, so the reason why I say that I'm a faith mental health wellness coach, because I found out that once I got to the intersection of faith and mental health and the changes I made, I began to think differently. When I begin to think differently, then my behavior changed. When my behavior changed, how I ate changed, who I hung out with, what I did, what my appetite was. And I don't mean just my physical appetite, but what my spiritual appetite, what my intellectual appetite was. It was a complete transformative journey. This website that she has there is that, so I'm a faith and mental health wellness coach because for anybody who has faith and is serious about their mental health and they are ready to improve their health, then this is why, then you go to this website and we can arrange a time to meet. And let me tell you this story. We all remember COVID, right? When it was at its height, because it's not completely gone. My doctor told the nurses, do not refill any prescriptions. And so any high blood pressure prescriptions. So I had to go in to see him. When I go in, the nurse cannot find my pulse. And so she's like, I don't know what's going on. Hopefully the doctor can. Then the doctor comes in. He can't find my blood pressure, not pulse. I'm sorry. He can't find my blood pressure. And so after about 10 minutes, he finally finds it and says, have you been feeling lightheaded at all? And I said, it's funny you should say that, doc. For the last 2 weeks, I have been feeling lightheaded. He says, are you still taking your medicine? I said, well, that's why I'm here, because I ran out. He said, don't take that high blood pressure medication another day. He said, because whatever changes you've made, you no longer need to take high blood pressure medication. He opens up the door, tells the nurses, says, I need y'all to know, y'all, by y'all doing exactly what I said, y'all saved this man's life. He said, because when the last time I checked somebody's pressure that was that low, they were on the operating table on their way checking out of here. How you drove here and sitting up here in the office talking to me is a miracle in and of itself. This is a physician talking now. And so, and let me just, I tell that testimony because never before in my family, anybody else I knew, was there ever a man, period, or a black man taking high blood pressure medication that was able to have it removed because of the changes that were made. And so and I'm not promising the exact same things that happened to me. But one thing I can tell you, that if you want someone to walk you through the faith and mental health and emotional health journey to transform your life so you can enjoy the value of your health, then I can definitely do that for you because I lived it. And guess what? Still living it because each and every day I'm pushing forward to be as healthy as I possibly can.
You know what? That stirred me up. I don't know if you want me to share your after pictures right now.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
So y'all
Good
saw when I was
conversation.
became ordained. You saw after such a weight gain, and then I want to show the transformation after arriving at the intersection of faith and mental health and realizing that when I got there, it was going to improve my overall wellness. It was going to improve all areas of my life. Um, so much so that my doctors, even now, have such a good relationship with my doctors. My doctor would say, "Listen, I need to come see you," and we end up having a Holy Ghost time at the doctor's office. You know,
That's so amazing. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Unbelievable. So here's your first after shot.
so now that was when I was an ordained.
That was the before.
Yeah, that was the before.
So that was the before.
Yeah, that
All
was the
right. So
before
here we
before.
go. This looks
Here
more
is the
like
after. Yeah. Right on time for Juneteenth.
right on top of Juneteenth.
Yeah,
Got my
so
Juneteenth shirt on. And that's another one.
yes. And so the reason I do that is because I'm gonna tell you the to go from a person who the doctors are looking at me, and let me just say this is last part of this testimony. Remember, I went to get this high blood pressure medication during COVID. By the time COVID happened, my transformation had already started and had already begun. And my doctor said that you were the poster child for pre-existing conditions.
Wow.
And it's highly unlikely that had you not began your journey and was in the state that you were in when you saw me with the graduation clothes, he says highly unlikely that you would be here today.
Wow.
And nobody saw COVID coming. Well, a few people, but that's a story for another day. But I'm just saying, this is why when the word of the Lord comes and moves you to make a change,
Mm.
there are things coming that you don't know about. There's no way in the world. I had no idea.
Right. Right.
Yes, indeed. So y'all be encouraged tonight.
So, I want to, before we go any further, I didn't do this before. I want to go back a bit
Yes.
and just go into what the difference is and between emotional and mental health. And then bring in the faith. I think you've done a phenomenal job of speaking on the faith component because um, we've done the best we know to do. So that in the coaching arena, mental health arena, it's like everyone does the best that they know to do with the information that they have at the time.
Yes.
And so that's why I wanted to really have this evening to reframe our thinking around how we handle mental health, emotional health. A lot of times um, people feel like uh, mental health does not apply to them. And that's one of the reasons why I want to get the month changed, the name of the month changed, because um, mental health and emotional health are very different. And I think if we add the emotional component, then people will realize we all feel,
Yeah.
right? We all have emotions. And so they won't exclude themselves from
Mhm.
the experience of emotional and mental health, or just even if I just say mental health, they'll realize that mental health relates to all of us. Um, and it's sometimes not easy for people to grasp that because a lot of times people think it only relates to people that are crazy or have function what do you call it, clinical diagnoses and things of that nature. We know that there's differences between types of depression and bipolar and all of those things, but what about just being depressed, non-clinical depression, or just not, I mean, I think there are people that are depressed. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were speaking about the symptoms of this person, a loved one, and I just said, it sounds like they could be experiencing depression.
Mhm.
And so I really want to get into the topic about the difference between the two and the signs that will show you, what emotional health is and mental health. So bear with,
Yes.
I'm gonna leave you on. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So third John chapter 1 verse 2 says, beloved, above all things, I wish that you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. So I really want us to grab hold of the phrase health. Health in and of itself, and this is going to challenge the way we may think. Sometimes we can use words, but how we define them is not what we think they are. Health does not differentiate between the mind, the body, and emotion. That is an error that human beings have made in an effort to understand. But in reality, it is naive to even believe they can be separated.
Say
That
that
is a
again,
very
please.
that is a very Western mindset. In other words, in Proverbs, it says, "As a man thinketh, so is he."
Right. In his heart. Think it in his heart.
Yeah, as a man thinketh in his heart. So watch this. Your heart is the seat of your emotions. Your
There it is.
thinking is what's going on in your mind, and both of these things influence what you do and your behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? One of the greatest misunderstandings is like, I want to be, is we think that a person can be mental, then this is physical, then this is spiritual. When in reality, everything is spiritual. The word of God says everything visible is governed by the invisible. So what we call mental stuff and what we call social and emotional stuff are only components of a spiritual reality. They cannot be separated. And the moment we begin to do that, is how we get the confusion where people are thinking that I can help you improve your thoughts, and it somehow is not going to have anything to do with what you feel.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Or the mistake that we make when we neglect what people feel and then try to feed something into their mind. It ain't gonna work.
It's so true. It's so true. Um, when I speak often, I'll say we're spirit beings having an earthly experience, right?
Yes.
That's a saying. I don't know who originated it, but I used to hear Dr. Miles Monroe say that a lot. And you just brought up, everything spiritual. One of the key components is we are spirit beings, so spirit always existed. It will not stop to. It will never cease to exist, right?
Yes.
That is who we are. However, how we feel is not spiritual per se. It's how we feel as far as our earthly experience. If you look
Yeah.
at Jesus in the Bible, he felt many things. He
Yeah.
cried and Jesus wept. Because I think the other day, last week, we were talking about um, how Jesus cried at Lazarus' death, right?
Yes.
You know about that. But
Yes.
I think that sometimes what we do in the body of Christ or church or what have you is we have some comments too here. Hi, Minister. Hi, Pastor Peggy. Oh, hi. How are you? So good to see you. Um, so I think sometimes what we do is we acknowledge and understand that Jesus was both human and divine. But because we know he's divine, we don't really focus much on his humanity
Yeah.
throughout his passion ministry.
Yeah.
He got angry. The Bible tells us to be angry and sin not, right? So we're allowed to get angry, and it's not as one of my favorite teachers, Dr. Anita Phillips, and I encourage you guys to check her out. she talks about often emotions are not a sin. It's not a sin to feel what we
Yeah.
feel. And I think if we learn how to get connected to the feeling of what it is that's going on, we can take the time to sit in it, get an understanding of what it is we're feeling and the why we're feeling it. Why is it resonating in the way that it does? Next week I have like an emotional tool that I'm gonna share. But let me read. I can't believe it's already an hour. Again, like I said at the top or in the middle, so to speak. When we're doing this kind of podcast, if you will, or in this more than one person on it, or even if it's just one, it takes time to set up. It takes your introduction
Yeah.
can be long and lengthy, and I don't want to rush through this. And I know we also talked about possibly extending, and even if we got to extend it, put it on another week, maybe not the next Tuesday after next week, but you know, I really wanted to take time with this because as I said earlier, we're living through this. So you've shared your experience, right? And I briefly shared my experience a little bit with, why good grief came. But really, really like I allowed myself when my husband passed away to sit with my feelings, however they came. I'm gonna put share what the cover of that book looks like, just so that you guys. I'm gonna put you in the. I'll leave you up, Pastor Graham. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
put you out, but I'm going to share what the cover of the book looks like again. Pastor Graham, your book is available on Amazon, right? As
Yeah.
well,
So they
right?
go to Amazon and just type in "Light Up" and Joseph Graham Jr. It'll come up.
Okay. And so
Mhm.
I wanted to share the cover of my book, Good Grief, so that you can see all of the different emotions that are on the cover. At the top of it says your way, your time. And you have a
Yes.
face on there that's crying. You have a face on there that's like, I'm okay, right? Shock, anger, sad, a face that's using a little bit of profanity. Because let's be real, depending upon what's going on in your life, what type of grief it is, or it doesn't even matter what type of grief it is. You want to some kind of times, say what you want to say and move on. And then there's a face that's in thought, but you see all of the different possible emotions there. Um, there's no cookie cutter way to grieve.
Yeah.
No cookie cutter way to experience the experiences that we have in life. And so, again, that's the name of the book, Good Grief. And it's important for us to realize that we get to grieve in the way that we need to grieve. And also for those of us that are loved ones to people who are grieving, or going through something, emotional injury, as I referred to it, to allow space for that.
Yeah.
Allow people to do it and process. Let me say process, because grief is a process, right? Allow them to process in a way, in a healthy way. That's the key for good grief. Because
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I wanted to have this is because a lot of us, I think, feel that we're processing or we're healing, and we're not healing in a healthy way. So maybe not tonight, but next week, I'm sure we can get into some conversations about what the response is, the informed, they call it trauma informed response, but people will know it to be flight, or flight, fawn, or freeze. And if we look within ourselves, we actually will see that we do show up in one of those ways.
Yeah. Well,
Now, go ahead.
one thing that there's these two things I do want to share, and of why people in faith spaces don't address trauma or avoid even the subject matter of mental health, much less mental health awareness or mental health illness. And there's two fundamental things that I talk about in the book in the intro. And the first one is deflection.
Deflection, yes.
It's a psychological defense mechanism that people put up. And so they want to, when someone brings up the the idea of going to mental health counseling, they want to treat it as though somebody's not operating in faith.
Yes.
You follow? And that is a way to deflect from what's really going on. And so you act like that is some type of lack of trust in God to go to somebody and to have somebody to meet with, to have somebody talk to you about the issues and the struggles that you have. And I know this firsthand because I dealt with it. And then the second one is denial.
Right.
And denial is when a person says, well, I don't already talk to God about it. Jesus done took care of that. And see, religious folks know how to religiously tell somebody to shut up when they're trying to when they tell them something they don't want to hear. And
Yes.
that's what religious folks do to tell people to get out my face. It's like, I talked to God about it. And it's like, no, you didn't. And see, let me tell you something. Is the phrase that you can't conquer what you don't confront, and pride comes before a fall, is
Mm,
that we are using religious innuendo to duck necessary conversations.
yeah.
And so, and because here's the thing, we would rather suppress and pretend like we had a breakthrough instead of really getting down knee deep into it. It reminds me of when the military general that was stricken with leprosy, and Elijah told him to go down and dip himself 7 times in the Jordan River. He was saying, why don't I go to these other beautiful rivers? He did not want to go to the murky rivers of Jordan and believe that his healing could come from there. And to me, it's very telling, because until we are willing to get into the muck and the mire and be honest and confront that which we came from, it'll chase you forever until you get delivered from it. And so for many of us, we've got religious people who don't realize that just because God used you doesn't mean that you delivered, because gifts and calling come without repentance, and God going to get his glory. Don't forget, before you got the title of apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, or teacher, the best title God can ever put upon anybody is vessel. And a vessel is something that gets poured into, so that whatever is poured into, it gets poured out, which means that, yes, God can use you to bless and pour into folks because they come into you with a spirit of expectation, but that has nothing to do with whether or not you're well.
That's
And
so good.
how do we know that? Because Paul said, why would I don't want to preach this gospel and me myself become a castaway. That very phrase he's saying to you, you could be doing mighty things, beautiful things in the community, excellent things for the kingdom, and you still crash out because you've not been delivered and set free from your own struggles. And
Right.
so a burden for me is my burden is reaching out to faith leaders and people of God and saying, we don't need no more, like like in the New Testament, the woman who made clothing and did all of this stuff in the community named Dorcas, and she drops dead in the middle of the house one day. And some folks had to go get Peter, and Peter, ends up resurrecting her. But a lot of us are dying in plain sight because we usher, because we leaders, because we preach, because we sing, because we led altar call, and you're dying. And let me tell you something. When the enemy can't stop you from doing what God called you to do, the next plan of action is to at least cut your time short. And so as much as we want to bless God for saying amount of years, how many more years were you supposed to be here
Woo.
doing what God called you to? Let's stop patting ourselves on the back. We wear our confusion and trauma like badges of honor, as if that's something that God likes. Some
Yikes.
stuff we keep going back to. The Bible talks about deliverance. How are you in your 14th year of being saved and talking about the same issue, as if, and then lie to ourselves, God is getting the glory? God is not getting the glory off of a soul tie that has attached itself to you that you have not gotten rid of. Yes, you've done great work, but guess what? We all know it ain't us anyway. God can make donkeys prophesy. So the fact that you can sing or preach shouldn't be something to make you forget the fact that he can use whatever he chooses. He said he'll make the rocks cry out. The question is, when nobody's around,
Oh, that
Are
part.
you going to go into that secret place and ask God to deliver you? That's what we're talking about. Real breakthrough, not religiosity, but real breakthrough. And the last thing I'll say is here, the skeletons in the closets of our parents become the imaginary friends that our children play with.
Oh, say that again.
The skeletons in the closets of our parents become the imaginary friends that their children play with, which means
Mm,
that we as believers get real gifted in thinking that we've hidden our struggles, only for it to show up in our child in a mutated, more advanced form. And we have the nerve to look at the young generation and be like, I don't know what's going on with this generation. What's going on with this generation is the thing that you thought you had hidden in the closet attached itself to your seed, and now it's running rampant. And so, and I'm not preaching at y'all, I'm talking about even me,
absolutely.
that
Which
we can't expect our children to operate in a level of deliverance when we know that there are things that we've not actually been freed from.
and that's really what this is all about. I'm going to extend the time a little bit more just because, we didn't have last week. And that's so key what you just brought up. Because then you start talking about generational patterns.
Yes.
And one of the things, goodness, I keep saying I'm going to go into, and I am going to share it before we get off, the difference between mental and emotional health. But one of
Yes.
the things that, going back to what I said about a lot of us think that we're healing, um, and going back to what you said, you can't conquer what you don't identify. You
If
can't
you don't
you
confront.
can't confront. You can't confront what you don't identify. And so a lot of us are processing. I won't even say grieving because just processing, whatever. Um, Processing what it is that we experience, what we've gone through. In many cases, based on how our parents did. It was a learned behavior. We saw it in the home. We either saw how they didn't process, whether it was to um, suck it up, push it down, and just try to go on with life. I'll bring up right now, I have a friend who talked about during COVID. It's so funny you should mention COVID, um, who was molested or raped. Forget about, I want to call it what it was, in honor to what his experience was. He was raped by, and this raped by the pastor of his church, right? We're talking about faith. And so, I'm going to stay right here. Hurt people hurt people. Now, I don't know his pastor's story, but more than likely, if you probably went down in his history, if you will, it's possible that he could have been traumatized in some way or abused in some way, right? So my friend was raped at 13 by the pastor of the church, unfortunately. And please, when I say that, for those who are non-believers, that is um, not exemplary of what a pastor should represent in the church. Because I know that there are a lot of people who are like, well, that's why I don't want to go to church. Please don't let that be why you don't go to church, because that's not every pastor, and that's not every member of the church. So I just want to interject that. But in any case, my friend, he was able to grow up and become industrial. He's in entertainment, and so he was busy with the things of life, busy with doing his profession, if you will, until COVID hit, where everybody was locked down, and he could not do what it was that he used to anesthetize the feelings of the experience, the unfortunate experience that he had. And he himself, he did a whole YouTube, Facebook post and spoke about it and spoke to how he was able to busy himself away from dealing with. Ayanna Van Zant has a statement called feel, deal, heal. And I use that for my practice. Feel, deal, heal, because if we can't feel it, then we can't deal with it and it won't heal properly. So I say all of that to say a lot of us are going through, a lot of us get busy. busy working. You
Yeah.
know, I'll admit I'm the kind of person that, if I'm or at least I used to be, well, I'll say I still am, if something happens, the working of it busies you enough to take your mind away from it. It distracts you away from sitting in the feelings. So
Yeah.
now what I'm learning to do is to sit still and check in with my body where the emotion is resonating. And sometimes it'll resonate in the solar plexus, depending upon what it is. It may resonate in your head, you may get a headache. It may resonate in your back. Check in with your body and see where it's resonating so that you can then feel it, like I said earlier, and begin to start dealing with it. Pastor Graham mentioned therapy. Therapy is key. And before we get off, we're gonna and I'll probably put it in the chat, some not therapist names, but places where you can seek out therapy. A lot of people want to, especially people in faith, they want to do Christian therapy or what have you. There's so many therapists out there. And if you don't have insurance or money is an issue, there is a platform where you can go and you can get therapy based on your income or what you bring home. So they've eliminated the excuse to not go to therapy. And I have was listening to something the other day, and the person was talking about dealing with the emotions and feelings and things like that, or grieving or going through the process. And the person said, I realized a lot of times people don't want to deal with it or face what they're feeling because they think, or let's take crying for an example. They think if they start crying, they're not going to stop, right? So the reality is that's not true. you
No.
know, you will be okay. And it's okay to not be okay. We've heard that thrown around, right? But it really is okay not to be okay. A lot of times we try to rush ourselves past what it is we're feeling so we can get past the discomfort of it
Exactly.
rather than sitting in it, right? You mentioned something in our preparation time last week, blind spots. And I wanted you to speak to that.
Oh yeah. So blind spots are not created by what we don't know. Because usually people, that's how we view a blind spot. Man, um it's something I don't see. Blind spots are not created by what we don't see. Because that's normally what we think of when we say blind spot. But blind spots, they're not created by what we don't see. They are created by us, by our overconfidence in what we think we know. Blind spots are not made by what we don't see. They are created by our overconfidence in what we think we know. It is our certainty about things that we think we know that causes us to miss that which we don't even see or don't recognize. And I'll give you an example. You can, and this doesn't always, this oftentimes happens for the best reasons. You can have a parent who wants the best for their child. And they say, you're going to go to school and you're going to study XYZ. This just, they choose the field for them in the whole 9 yards. And they say, you're going to be a doctor. But the child has a natural inclination for nature. And they're like, you ain't going to do that. And the child seems to have a photographic memory when it comes to not just animals and insects, but what their use is, this, that, and the third. But the parent is like, that ain't gonna get you no money. You need to do this. It's all for the right reasons. But because of that parent probably grew up, didn't go to college or whatever, and their fear of poverty or fear of their child not being prepared for life, they're not hearing nothing this child is talking about. Because in their mind, doctor equals you're going to make enough money to live good. I'm not entertaining nothing else. And with that mentality, they miss that this child is a genius, and they're gonna, the very thing that you're thinking, hoping they would do as a physician, they'll be able to do as a scientist, but they'll miss it because it's a blind spot. That's just an example I'm making up. Oftentimes, us not willing to be open to new information. this is something I've been saying for years. People, even in faith-based spaces, we no longer look for revelation. We just look for confirmation. See,
Mm,
revelation is when something you did not see, you did not know, is revealed. That's why it's a revelation. It's revealed. But we have gotten in such a narcissistic, self-serving mentality in the world that we live in that we're not looking for revelation. All we want is somebody to confirm what we done already decided to believe, what we done already decided to do. And if somebody says something contrary, then they miss God, and this it ain't this, that, and the third. And that's what stunts growth, because no one is willing to entertain the idea that there is something you don't yet understand. There's something you yet don't comprehend. And that right, and the reason why that's such an oxymoron to say you follow God but think like that is because the very foundation of being the disciple is recognizing there's a level of discipline you don't have and that you need, which means that you got to be trained. And we should always be forever seeking in wisdom
yeah,
from God. And so,
absolutely.
and so because of that, a lot of times it is that poor thinking that has us blocking our understanding of mental health and the intersection of faith. And you were saying about emotional health. I just want to say this. We first got to feel it, but then we got to recognize, what do you do next?
Right.
See, the word of God is important because there's no scenario you agree that God does not provide some level of guidance and direction for.
Absolutely.
You said to yourself that, watch this, that we got to be restored. We get busy. COVID was so shocking to the world because people could not run from themselves by keeping busy. But guess what? The word of God said, he leadeth me beside the still waters, and then he restores my soul. There is no restoration without stillness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so important. It's so interesting that you're saying that. I think COVID exposed a lot of the stuff that we weren't dealing with.
Yes.
People were forced to be home together. So you have marriages that were falling apart or didn't survive COVID because there was unresolved stuff. You know, you have, situations where people are like, like you said earlier, I'm not doing therapy. I don't believe in that, right? Or that I don't need it. And one of the things that I want to clarify about therapy is, a lot of times people are like, I don't need therapy. I already know what's going on with me. But therapy will also help you unpack what it is, and that's a word that we've heard much of. Many of us have heard in this type of arena. Unpack, or I refer to it as an onion peel. It's layers.
Yes.
There's
Oh,
layers
yeah.
to all of this. There's layers to the processing, and so therapy helps you experience that or go through that with someone that will partner with you, or even coaching. Well, I say therapy because depending upon, but it's in coaching too. I would say coaching, but coaching is a little different than, and that coaching is to help you get from the present to the future. That's the goal ultimately. But sometimes in therapy, especially transformational therapy, it is about going back a little bit and just picking up the pieces or identifying, as you said, where this is coming from, because there's a cause and effect to everything. So the way I show up in the world often has to do with the way I didn't, or I did process some of the
Mhm.
things that I went through. I don't even have time to talk about, childhood trauma, and that's a new conversation, if you will, in mental health that we're hearing a lot about. But I used to say to people all the time, I believe everyone I believe everyone has had some form of childhood trauma. Now, again, then we need to think about what trauma is, right? And get clear on that. But something happened to shift. That's what trauma is. It means a shifting in your experience, a shifting in your emotions, a shifting in your mind about something that happened that changed or changed you.
Mhm.
And so, when you think about that, trauma can, you can definitely look back at people's childhood and see, okay, this happened, and this is why they're the way they are now as adults. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So um it is very important. We're getting ready to wrap up. I hate to like let this go because there's so much
Yes.
we're talking about, right? But I want to read this, and super, super excited. I don't know who has to work tomorrow for Juneteenth. But for those of us that are off, hang in, and thank you to all of you that are on this live right now. Again, we are on live on YouTube, and we are live on Facebook. We didn't get to go live on IG when we refreshed our system. It refreshed the stream key for IG, and that probably is like, to some people, like, what is she talking about? Stream
Mhm.
key, that's all those embedded codes and things like that that you get to use to go live and stuff. And when we did that, it changed the key. So we'll be live next week on IG, and I was able to go over there and let them know to join us over here. So really quickly, mental health and emotional health. I'm going to leave you on the camera. Is that okay, Pastor?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And so we just want to give a contrast and connection between the two. Mental and emotional health are pivotal aspects of overall well-being. I'm just going to read it as I have it down in my notes. Okay. So we can really make it plain. I don't want to leave anything out. So mental and emotional health are pivotal aspects of overall well-being, each playing a critical role in how individuals navigate challenges. Life challenges, okay? Mental health encompasses one's psychological, that's the mind, right? Emotional and social well-being, okay? Influencing cognition, perception, and behavior. Mental health encompasses one's psychological, emotional, and social well being, influencing cognition, perception, and behavior. It determines how one handles stress, relates to others, and makes choices.
Mhm.
That's mental health. In contrast, emotional health refers to a person's ability to express feelings appropriately. I want to say appropriately, okay? Because we have people acting out. I heard someone say, I said, I listened to a podcast. Um, he's no longer a pastor, but Tim Ross. I listened to him, and he there's a quote that I actually wanted to um read from him, and I'll read it when I get to the bottom of my notes. But one of the things that he talked about was um getting it out verbally, talking. That's why community is so important. We'll get to talking about community next week. That is a chapter, a specific a sole chapter in my book, a standalone chapter in my book that speaks about community and talking to people. You're having your therapist and getting your emotions out of your body, and the different ways that you can do that. And one of the ways he talked about is speaking. He said, what you don't, because he was speaking about his personal challenge of being abused as a young kid at 8 years old. And he said, what you don't verbalize will you act out.
Yeah.
What you don't verbalize,
Oh
you.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And someone else I heard say, what you don't get out or what you don't speak out, and I think it was Iyanla Van Zandt, what you don't speak out, especially in women, it will resonate in the body. It will settle in your body. Emotions are energy, and it will settle in your body. So that's why I encourage clients to write and sing. I encourage crying. Put some music on and have a cry session, as we call it.
Yeah.
Cry. There's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
those tears. Let them flow, because it'll make you feel better and allow you to get that out.
Yeah.
um Journal. you know
Yes.
it's one of the things I'm going to do. I won't speak to this too much, but something I'm venturing to do in the future. I'm going to include going to one of those, what do they call it, a rage room, where you
Oh
or a
yeah. Yeah.
smash
You
room.
break up
You know what I'm
stuff
talking
and
about?
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Now it's so funny because, just a total sidebar. When I see people like throwing stuff on TV, and it's not really a total sidebar, but when I see people throwing stuff on TV and breaking plates and stuff. I'm like, why are they doing that? They gotta clean that up. Why they have to clean it up? But here's the thing: you may need to do that. You may need to, find some old dishes that you're not going to use and just go outside and just crack them things and just throw, or get a bat and just bang against a pillow. Whatever it is, get it out. We get angry at the transitions that we experience in life. That is a very, very big emotion, anger.
Yeah,
And again, going back to faith, the Bible tells us, be angry and sin not.
yeah,
So that means that if I get angry, I can go up and like punch somebody, or, I
yeah,
referred to earlier the scripture that says, we don't sorrow as the world does. I wanted to speak back to that about
yeah,
what we do, because a lot of people, when we experience what this says as life's challenges, and I'll refer to that because it's not always a process of grief, but life's challenges or emotional injury or whatever, an emotional transition because of something that has occurred. A lot
yes,
of times, we anesthetized by drugs. How many? I don't. I mean, there's a lot of people in the church that they smoke the weed, or doing whatever, drinking alcohol. Now the Bible does say, be not drunk with wine. So that's your, if that's your conviction that you don't drink, fine. But people are, they are numbing the pain
yeah.
with alcohol.
Well, I want to bring up like so alcohol, smoke, like those are things that whether people do them or not, they're basically understood in society that they can be detrimental. But in
Absolutely.
faith-based spaces, what doesn't get enough attention is people trying to utilize religious innuendo and church rhetoric to justify inappropriate activity.
Absolutely.
And that we won't go into that tonight, but just I as a pastor, I have had to I've been in places to help nurse people's back to health because of things that faith leaders did that they so-called tried to say it was anointed and it was God when really it was bondage. And you're dealing with somebody who's not delivered, exercising a level of abuse upon someone else. And that is the other reason why these things are necessary, not
Yes.
just so much just for all the parishioners, but also so we can stop faith leaders from showing up and bleeding all over the people with stuff that they need to get delivered from.
Right. And again, it goes back to, this is why we're having this, because you do what you do. A lot of the faith leaders that came up behind us, they did what was done to them.
Yeah,
So that's why we're having this
that's
conversation,
right.
so that we
That's
can
right.
reframe going forward. You reference this new generation, and we can relate to this generation. We just
Yes.
have to know that it's not necessarily going to be in the way that our parents related to us, or our pastors, related to us, but in a different way. And that means allowing space to be vulnerable, allowing space to express themselves, and allow for the transformation and the transition to occur in a healthy way. And a lot of
Healthy
times,
way.
I think faith leaders, and because there's not enough education around it, we become enablers to, not we, what they, the preachers or pastors or faith leaders, or however you want to put it, become enablers to poor behavior, like
Yes.
anesthetizing with drugs and sex, and being it don't even have to be promiscuous. You mentioned earlier, from your own perspective in your own story, having inappropriate connections. I can attest to that. Inappropriate connections, but not even knowing the why of it. And,
Yes.
having to go into my life and look at through a healing journey and see, okay, that's where this came from. Looking within. And I think that that's
Yes.
challenging when you're dealing with this type of work, because it is work, guys.
Yes.
It's work. Dealing with this type of work, it means looking inward. Yes, something externally definitely happened, but the healing begins on the inside of you. And so that's what we're speaking about. So let's get through these definitions, and then we're going to close. I'm going to share some other information about Pastor Graham. And what I'm going to do right now, Pastor PG, I'm going to put your your Cash App and information up on the screen. Again, the name of his book is Light Up: A Guide to Balance, Faith, and Mental Health. And you can go to Amazon and you can get that. And
Yes.
where's your information? And I'll put it up here. Well, why don't you? There it is. Okay, so that's Pastor Graham's uh financial stuff. If you should wish to send him, he's not getting paid. This is my brother that agreed to do this for free. And again, that's his Cash App up there, dollar sign
Let,
Art
let me
Church.
let me mention this too. I don't
Sure.
know if I told you about this, but RTD, we've been around for over 20 years, but this is the first time that we have stepped into missionary work. And so
Mm.
we partnered with a gentleman named David Nabor, who's doing phenomenal
Oh yes,
mental health work in Ghana.
yes.
And so for anyone who wants to help support the work that we're doing, they can definitely utilize the Tively or the RTD Church. But what he's doing is he's going around. What's happening is, because of a lack of mental health awareness, people with mental health issues are being thrown into the street, thrown into jail, kind of like what goes on here, being
Wow.
abused. So he's going around. He does mental health awareness at schools, at police stations, in communities, at churches, a lot of the faith and mental health stuff that we were talking about. And so I just want to put that out there. Great, a
Yeah,
great,
thank
great
you.
work is being done.
Thank you. I had the pleasure of jumping on the Zoom the other day, and I was able to hear him, and he was speaking about nutrition as it relates to mental health. And when I tell you, that was right up my alley, because that's another whole topic. After
Yes.
we have these series of, after Pastor Graham and I finish these series of sessions, I actually plan to have my personal naturopath holistic practitioner by the name of Jacqueline Nasir. I had him come on my conference, the Metamorphosis Conference during COVID, where we spoke about the mind body connection. And that's, the food is always included in that. And so that'll be the next set of series that episodes and what have you that we're going to be having. So thank you for sharing that. And please
Yes.
go to Pastor Graham's Cash App or the Tidely, where you can certainly donate. You can certainly donate. I'll leave that up there, and then I'll share mine as after I read this. So, in contrast, we were talking about emotional health refers to a person's ability to express feelings appropriately, the capacity for emotional resilience, and the quality of one's inner experiences. Excuse me. Understanding the distinction between mental and emotional health is essential for identifying and employing the right strategies and resources. So I'm just going to jump really quickly. And I think yeah, so I'll reread this definition next week at the top, so that we're all clear. And I'm going to ask that you please, 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 please share this information. Share this information with your friends, your family, your congregations, your enemies, whomever it is. Everybody needs this information. Okay. So, in distinguishing mental health from emotional health, it's essential to understand that their definitions, and how they interconnect to affect overall well-being. Okay, so the definition of mental health, it says it encompasses the state. I read it already. It encompasses the state of one's psychological well-being. Right? It is concerned with the way individuals manage their cognitive abilities and duties. Mental health affects how people process information. So when you're taking, your mind takes in the information. Your mind is where you process the information, and the information is the stimuli, if you will. That's where you take it in. That's where the download occurs. That's the information. And that's where you make decisions and synthesize the thoughts, right? But one of the things that is key, that we're also learning, is that, that's where you get the information, but immediately you begin to feel. as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So immediately you get the thought, you get the stimuli, and you begin to feel it, whatever it is, whether it's anger, it's that thing that wants to make you punch something when you get mad, or that thing that makes you want to go off and cuss somebody when you get mad. And people want to use, I'm not even gonna get into that. I was gonna use the example of was it Peter?
Yeah.
Use that as an excuse to, fight folk. And we're
Yeah.
not, all we got to do is really like be still and really process what's really going on. What was
What's
really
really
the
going on?
thing that activated you? What was the trick? We'll talk about triggers and activations, because it's two very different things. Everything is not a trigger.
Yeah.
Everything's not a trigger. So I ain't even gonna get into that this week. Sometimes we can be activated by certain things that happen. And then emotional is refers to the ability to handle emotions effectively. It is indicative of how people express and manage feelings and how they respond to emotional challenges. And it is emotional health. Emotional health is about experiencing and regulating what we speak about in the mental health space. When we speak about regulating, we're talking about regulating your nervous system. And so next week we're going to get into again your nervous system and what's really responding in the moment. And a lot of times we don't have that information. We just kind of like, we don't know. We know we feel something, but we don't understand what it is we're feeling. We don't understand where it's coming from. So
Yeah.
hopefully we can give some information around that. But it's about regulating. And when we say regulating, we mean regulating your nervous system and regulating one's emotional reactions to it. Okay. And so I hope that we've provided some good information tonight. I'm gonna again. I'll read the rest of the definition tomorrow, but tomorrow I wish
Next week. Yeah.
next week. But and we'll speak about overall well-being. But I do want to read this quote. Some of the things that we want to pay attention to, because next week is a long time, right? So some of the things, the way that emotions come up is by way of stress and anxiety, restlessness, fatigue, difficulty concentrating. And sometimes we go through that and we just think, oh, I'm just tired today, or I
Yeah.
can't sleep. And we're not connecting the dots as to why that is. And so, again, people experience depression, and depression can show up as sadness, loss of interest, lack of sleep. I'll tell you now, when you go and you sign up with a mental health therapist, the questions that they're going to ask you, and even some of our doctors, they ask you, are you
Yeah.
having a hard time eating? Are you having a hard time sleeping? Are you having a hard time staying awake? Have you lost interest in, daily activities, or being social with your friends? That's their way of assessing whether you have depression.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's okay. It's okay. Mood swings and anger and so on and so on and so on. And so, withdrawal is really a big one. People isolating. And we can get to talking about that some more next week. But this is what I want to leave us with. Well, you may have some closing comments, but I want to, my final point before, um, kicking it back to Pastor Graham. Um, I heard someone say it this way: I made a deal with my grief, and let's just insert, I made a deal with my emotions and how I felt about it, or I made a deal with my processing, that whenever it shows up, that I would acknowledge it. I made a deal with my grief, for whatever my feelings are about around whatever has happened, that whenever it shows up, that I would acknowledge it. And that simply just means going and getting again a check-in with yourself. And so, as Pastor Graham, mentioned, I think he said all of this. He's a professor of the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, pastor of Road to Damascus Christian Church of Faith and Wellness Ministry. And he is a faith and wellness program coordinator for Living Waters Incorporated. And he is a faith, mental health, wellness coach. And it's truly been a pleasure. I'm going to put his information back up on the screen. And for those of you that will catch this in rebroadcast, if you will, because we are live, but catch this after we go off. please definitely share this with someone. Make sure that they get the information. Again, Pastor Graham has been a pleasure to, share with him. And you guys, we get to talking about stuff and we just like, we go. Like he blows my mind sometimes with the thing he said from off rip from the time that I met him, like I said earlier. And so again, you can go to his website at www.equityoneverything.com. That's www.equityoneverything.com. You can find him on IG at Joseph Graham Jr. That's at Joseph Graham Jr. Also, you can find him on IG at RTD Church FW. Again, that's RTD Church FW. You can find him on YouTube at YouTube /at RTD Church FW. All right.
Yes,
And
indeed.
so, Pastor Graham, let me just, I got to put my information up there too so that people can see it. Praise the Lord.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay, so you can connect with me at my website is, or Visions of Hope website is with www.vohc.life. It is currently under construction, so when you do go there, you will get a page that indicates that, but we'll have that up and ready for you soon. That's again www.vohc.life. My IG handles are at Visions of Hope. Again, that's at Visions of Hope. And you can go to at only one Nayla Shay. That's the number one, only one Nayla Shay. And you can find us on YouTube at youtube.com /at Visions TV, the number 7. At Visions TV, the number 7. You can also send us emails. I'll give you the email Visions of Hope Coaching, Visions of Hope. I'm so sorry, VOH Coaching at gmail.com. That's VOH Coaching. And Pastor, would you share your email with us, please?
The email is rtdchurchfw@gmail.com.
I'm sorry, your voice cut out a little bit there.
It's rtdchurchfw@gmail.com. And I just wanted to also let it be known that every Sunday at 11 on the YouTube channel, the Sunday service goes live at the YouTube Road to Damascus Christian Church or RTD Church FW YouTube channel every Sunday at 11 o'clock a.m.
Awesomeness. Please, please, please check out Pastor Joseph Graham on his YouTube channel. And you can check him out on Sundays. And of course, since it's going to be on YouTube, you can check it out if after your services. I've put my information up on the screen as well. You see my Venmo information at Nayla Shay. And the Cash App is $Nayla Shay. And then my Zelle is the same as my email address, naylashay@gmail.com. And so, everybody, it has truly been a pleasure. Pastor, did you want to give any closing remarks to set the people up? Not so much set them up for next week, but just give them something to think about over the next week.
Yes. What's beautiful about being able to conquer what you confront is, like Nayla Shay said, you allow yourself to feel it. You can't get delivered from something that you won't identify. But what's important is what happens next. After you've identified it, it is important to realize that the reason why the word says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, is because how long something from your past is going to affect you is 100% up to you. And the moment you choose and decide that it will no longer have that hold on me, then it'll be over. And the reason I say that is because sometimes out of good reason and for good intentions, we have allowed our past to become enablers and crutches, when reality it was a moment in time, but its placement in your future is totally up to you. And if you decide that your past will not go past your present, then your future will be what you make it and not what happened to you. So I'll leave you with that.
Thank you so much, Pastor. I want to put up on the screen here, guys, some tools for you to never, in the coaching space. I never like to leave people without information in terms of resources, and so I'm putting up on the screen some resources. In fact, let me put it up. Let me see if I can put it up a little bit bigger. Resources for you to be able to um, go to. You have BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com. And if you've ever watched YouTube, a lot of times those commercials
Yeah.
show up. BetterHelp.com. That
Yep.
is the site that you can go to, and they will base your amount that you pay on your income. So if you don't have an income, they actually give you funding, financial aid. They're basically providing no excuse. And a
Yeah.
lot of people don't even realize that mental health, or excuse me, behavioral health, is covered by your insurance. So a lot of people have, most insurance companies or most insurances do pay for your therapy visits or group therapy or what have you, for you to go get the care. A lot of people, when they hear the word help, they immediately eliminate themselves from the conversation because they don't think they need help. Care. One of the things Pastor Graham was speaking about last week when we were preparing for this was how we easily see the need to get our cars fixed. We will go to the gym. We make sure that we go to the doctor, even if something is happening with our body. If we get a deep cut or whatever, a wound, or we have an illness, we'll go to the doctor. Yet we won't necessarily go and get therapy. Okay, so let's reframe our thinking around it. There's so many resources available. These are just a few that I pulled up. BetterHealth.com. You can also go to psychologytoday.com. That's psychologytoday.com. Or I'm sorry, not today. It's psychology.com if I'm not mistaken. Psychology.com. And when you go there, they have a slew of psychologists that you can see. Some people don't want to go to a psychiatrist, so you can see psychologists and therapists. And then I purposely put up therapy for Black girls on there because not to say that our Caucasian brothers and sisters don't need the information, but guess what? They're the ones that really, really go to therapy. They put their kids in therapy without problem. It's our brothers and our sisters in the Black community that seemingly struggle with connecting the dots with going to get care. Take care of yourself. Take care of your emotions. Take care of your mind. And we're going to sign off this way, the way I signed off all of my posts. Be kind to yourself. Be gracious with yourself, or have grace with yourself. Love yourself. And remember that you are enough just as you are. Please care for yourself, love somebody else, and make sure that you share this with someone so that they can also get the care that they need. Thank you again, Pastor Grant, for joining us tonight. And
Thank you for
everybody,
having me.
a wonderful, wonderful night. Peace and blessings. Oh, we didn't even open up for questions, but let me do that. Anybody that's on, before we do, I do want to respect what I said. Before we go, anyone has a brief question, please throw it in the comments really quickly and we'll address them. And if not, we are going to sign off. We're going to sign off, but get your questions prepared for next week. And you can also email us questions. Email them to me at at vohcoaching.com, or you can put it in the Visions of Hope DM. Okay. So if there's no questions, we're going to, if anyone posts after we get off, we'll just save the questions for next week. And feel free, if it's something pertinent that needs to be addressed prior to, we'll definitely get the information to you. All right. Peace and blessings, everyone. We hope you have a good night. Thank you for sticking with us a little longer than we planned to, but yeah, it was necessary information. So peace and blessings. God bless you. Bye bye.